Welcome back to Real Talk Baseball. I am your host today, John Murrow, here with my man, Will Power. Will, how are you doing, my man?
I am great, man. How was your Thanksgiving, bro?
It was awesome. Basically, the comparison I was able to share with my family was I kind of felt like Tim Allen, like day 2, that he realized he was the Santa Claus, where you're just like, oh. So hitting the gym today, getting a haircut later today. So trying to feel human again after, 3 straight days of eating Thanksgiving food. But yeah, it was a
Haircut.
blast.
Have
Yeah.
I haven't had
Yeah.
a haircut in over 20 years, man. I mean, as you can see, I kind of like cut my own hair every 2-3 days or so.
Dude, haircuts are expensive, and they're even more expensive in San Francisco, because today we're going to talk about our San Francisco Giants. When I say our San Francisco Giants, this is Will's biggest rival, you want to say, still, as a Dodgers
It's
fan?
got to be, man. I mean, you could say Dodgers rivals are the biggest rival right now is the Padres, but it people say that just because it's so recent, and it's been a little while since the Giants have been in like playoff contention. But longevity, like long term, Giants are definitely the biggest rival of the Dodgers, which, you know, I I have no hate against the Giants. It is definitely our biggest rival, and I love the rivalry, just like you love the rivalry against the Braves and the Mets. It makes baseball fun. And the good thing about us is we know all of baseball, not just our teams that we root for. So ready
Sure
to talk
do.
about this Giants squad, man.
I am, and before we do, let's not forget to like and subscribe up on the QR code. Follow us on all platforms: Instagram, Facebook. We got them all, so don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us for every episode. So while we're getting started here, happy retirement to Brandon Crawford, who spent 13 of his 14 MLB seasons with the Giants, and got to also tease a potential special guest from the San Francisco Giants, world champion San Francisco Giant. So he may be coming on the podcast here sooner than later. So just going to plant that seed here a little bit for all of us. But let's get started here talking about the 2024 overview of the San Francisco Giants. So the 2024 Giants, they finished 80 and 82. And honestly, my first thoughts when I had to think about the 2024 Giants, they just weren't sexy. There was nothing that really wowed me with that team, honestly. And I thought about Blake Snell and how he's no longer going to be there. So they have a pretty big gap to fill by filling Blake Snell and his production, not only just the no hitter, but this team just lacks star power. I just think they're so mid on the surface. There really wasn't much else that came from this season. I was very surprised last year when they signed Blake Snell towards the end. He was one of the Boris clients that didn't really get the result he was looking for. But between the Giants signing him, Jung-Hoo Lee, who dislocated his left shoulder, that those two early in the offseason or early in the season last year, that really just kind of pulled the wind out of their sail. So overall, I mean, they extended Matt Chapman during the season. Matt Chapman, 247, 27 homers, 78 RBIs. I mean, he's good, but is he good enough to be your guy? I don't think so, man. But Will, what are your thoughts? Tell me what your thoughts were on the overall Giants, and we'll talk about where they can go moving forward. But last year, were you surprised by that record? They didn't make the playoffs, and just they were pretty mid all year.
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised. To be honest with you, I was a hell of a lot more surprised when they had a over 100 win season a couple seasons ago, and no one really saw that coming. And I I don't think anyone really saw this coming either. 80 and 82. I thought they were at least going to be above 500, especially being in the same division as the Colorado Rockies, who's one of the worst teams in baseball. And just right behind the Diamondbacks, who was coming off of a World Series run, last season before against the Rangers in 2023. So they had a disappointing season also, but the Giants, man, I I really don't have a lot of hopes, I think, for 2025. Their best hitter was Matt Chapman, like you just mentioned, and when Matt Chapman is your best hitter, kind of a disappointing season, dude. The guy is known for his glove, not really so much for his bat. Like back in the day when he was with the Blue Jays, he was like, a big power threat. Before that, he was with the A's with Matt Olson, another power hitter from the Atlanta Braves now. But, both of those guys were kind of like hand in hand. Like they kind of seemed like very similar players at the time. Good, solid defense and decent bat. But then Matt Olson just took that big step forward with the bat, and Matt Chapman didn't really do that, injuries and stuff like that, but I think the Giants have it in their sights that they want to prioritize defense and pitching, and I think that's why they locked up Matt Chapman for that long-term deal, which I love, especially, playing in that ballpark in Oracle Park. It's more of a pitcher's ballpark than a hitter's ballpark. So you're not really going to try to like go out there and sign like a bunch of sluggers anyway. They had the least amount of home runs out of any ballpark in 2024. So I'd like to see a lot of guys like higher batting average. And going into our next segment, the front office, Buster Posey was just named the president of baseball operations, and Farhan Zaidi is gone, which really surprised the hell out of me, dude, because he wasn't there for very long. That I feel like they didn't even really like give him a chance. But there could be some underlying things that we don't really know as just fans kind of watching. There could be some behind the scenes stuff that we haven't been brought up to speed yet. And I don't know. What do you think about this Buster Posey move? Like, I know he's going to go down as one of the greatest catchers of all time. And he won 3 World Series with the Giants back in the mid to late 2000s. And I don't know. Like I've seen ex-players become managers, but becoming president of baseball operations, that's almost unheard of. I know the Rangers did it with Chris Young, but can we see Buster Posey actually going in there and making good draft decisions and making good? I don't know. I don't really know his baseball IQ like that. I don't know. What do you think?
It's more of a culture than anything, and I think that's what they're looking for. They're Farhan Zaidi, he was successful in LA, but that's also a different time in baseball too. He was there for what, 5-6 years at least.
Mm-hmm.
He's been there. You can establish your culture, you can establish your coaches, you can get your guys in there and make your imprint. And the Giants just never really got anywhere more than average the entire time. So, I think it's just a matter of, if you're signing a guy who, I really can't think of a better face for that organization right now, outside of I'd love to say Barry Bonds, but, he's tainted, if you will. There's a few points you had there too that I did want to cover though. Why can't you sign a slugger? I know we're going to talk about this, but the best hitter of all time crushed it there. And I'm not saying you're going to sign the best hitter of all time nonetheless, but you can still hit. It's a pitcher's park, but you can still hit in that park too. Nonetheless, I think shaking up that front office is what they really needed, and bringing in a guy who knows that organization in and out, guys like him, current players like him, past players like him. And that's how you can really shake up an organization with, especially someone who's familiar. Now, they not only just did Buster Posey, they also brought in Zach Maniason as the team's general manager, who was the team's head of pro scouting since 2019. So if you're truly looking for an outside the organization shakeup here, they definitely didn't do that. If you were looking for new blood, they definitely didn't get that. Now, shaking it up this way, there's a level of comfort there, no doubt. And let's see if it's the right move. I think ultimately this allows them to be a little bit more aggressive and maybe signing some guys who, like I said, current players and previous players like Buster Posey. They will advise their clients to sign based on Buster Posey, and they'll spend money. We know they wanted to sign Judge. They wanted to sign Carlos Correa. Things just didn't work out. They want a star. Shaking it up this way can help them land one of those big fish.
Well, my point about the not signing a power hitter, I don't think it's in their control, because they can throw as much money as they want at like a guy like Pete Alonso, who's probably going to hit, 45 to 50 home runs at Citizens Bank, but at Oracle Park, he's more of a 30 to 35 homer guy, just because of the dimensions of the park and the way that the wind blows in. Home runs die in San Francisco. And, every power hitter knows that. And, unless you're Barry Bonds and you're hitting the ball 120 miles an hour off the bat, then, things are different. Or an Aaron Judge or Stanton, some guys that hit the ball extremely hard. And there is a prospect coming up for the Giants that does hit the ball extremely hard. So that kind of like helps out later on. But for 2025, I don't think that guy's ready yet. I don't think that any slugger really wants to go and play in San Francisco because of that reason.
I mean, you lost me in the first half of that sentence where if you throw a bag of money at someone, what does Pete Alonso care if he hits 15 less home runs if he's making $15 million more a year? You throw money at anyone, they'll sign. So I don't know. He's not going to be a legacy Hall of Fame. He might be a borderline Hall of Fame player, a guy like Pete Alonso, for instance. But a guy like Juan Soto, where he has a chance to be the best player of all time still. Pete Alonso does not.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. If we're talking money, it really depends on what he wants. Money with a chance at a championship, San Francisco could be a good spot to go. I don't
Yeah,
care how many,
especially with Soto, like he's looking for that 15-year deal or even longer. He wants to be whatever his next team is where he wants to stay for the duration of his career. He wants to retire there. So I think that any team really has a shot if the money's there. And Juan Soto's stats are not really going to be there in San Francisco like they were in New York, because a left-handed hitter in New York is going to hit 15 more home runs per year versus playing in San Francisco, and I think that going into that, Juan Soto will know that, and there is a different possibility that he could sign with San Francisco, because, like you said, money talks, right? And I think that aspect, he doesn't really care too much about his personal stats. He wants to help whatever team he signs with win a championship. He already has one under his belt with the Nationals, and he definitely wants at least one more, in the next 15 years or whatever it is that the next team gives him. If he was going for a shorter contract, if he was getting like a 3-year deal, I don't think that he would be wanting to sign in San Francisco, because when he's done with that 3-year contract, a lot of teams are going to see that he only hit 25 home runs per season, and his value is not going to be as high as it is now.
And this is going to be, we're going to talk more about, specific free agents that could land there, but the Giants really want that guy. And it was supposed to be Carlos Correa. He should be a Giant. He failed a physical. Aaron Judge, it was tweeted out that Arson Judge had signed with the Giants. That was not just a rumor. That was basically almost in ink. And I feel like he pressured the Yankees nonetheless, but that was close. They are going to land a big fish when someone takes the money. Just so far, past couple situations just didn't work out for one reason or another, but it will happen. I think Juan Soto has better suitors than the Giants who can pay just as much or more. So why not go to the better suitors? But a Teoscar Hernandez, for instance, if it was the Giants or the Red Sox offering him the most money, stay on the West Coast. I think that something like that could make a lot of sense.
And it might not only be like the amount of money, it could also be the amount of years that they're offering, because Teoscar Hernandez is 31 years old. So if there's a team that's offering him a 2-year contract for a little bit more money, but versus a team that could offer him a 5-year contract for a little bit less money, he might want that longevity, because he ain't no spring chicken, man. And by the time, the 5-year contract is over, he's going to be at the end of his career, or at least close to it. He might, bounce around to a couple different teams like JD Martinez did, towards the end of his career, just kind of be like a DH, not really playing the outfield too much anymore. I could see that, later on, but I think that he would still want to take that like longer deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think, anybody would if the money's the same or even better. I think moving forward to focusing on their biggest needs, as a Giant, I'm not a Giants fan, but I think the Giants' biggest needs, you lose a guy like Blake Snell. Blake Snell he was a difference maker. He had this team at least in playoff contention for the second half of the season when he was healthy. So they're getting Jung-Hoo Lee back. He's going to be healthy. I think they do need to replace a guy like Blake Snell as best as you can. Is that like a Max Fried a Corbin Burns, a Shane Bieber type. I think they'll go out and get at least an A- or B level arm on the market just because they have to. The rest of the rotation is just not ready yet. Kyle Harrison showed some flashes. Hayden Birdsong showed some flashes. Logan Webb's a stud. He's a good pitcher. He's a really, really good pitcher. Is he one of the best 5-10 pitchers in baseball? Maybe top 10. But you need a 1B, as we know. We talked about this on the Phillies episode, where a Wheeler and a Nola, you still need more than that. And that rotation as it is not going to get it done. So I do think they'll sign a top level, top tier pitcher and maybe a decent bat. And what does that decent bat look like? How about a Ha-Seong Kim, who was a Gold Glove infielder as well? They seem to have the Korean baseball trend, like the Dodgers have Japanese going on. So seems like they're linked to Ha-Seong Kim. And there's always international prospects coming over too. So that's something to watch out for.
I definitely agree that starting pitching and a guy like Ha-Seong Kim are going to be like the priorities for the Giants. I think of any of those 3 starting pitchers that you named, I think Corbin Burns would be the best fit for San Francisco. He is a Cali boy. He grew up, in California, grew up as an Angels fan. So no one wants to play for the Angels right now. Sorry, not sorry. So, being kind of like close back to home, playing in San Francisco. I mean, I lived in California for 36 years, and San Francisco is not close to Anaheim. It's about a 9 or 10 hour drive, but it's a hell of a lot closer than the East Coast would be. A plane ride is only a couple hours versus a 6.5 hour plane ride if he's still playing like in Baltimore. But I could definitely see him playing in San Francisco, man. I think that would be a good fit for him. Like the home run ball was a problem for him in 2024. And like I mentioned earlier at Oracle Park, that's where home runs go to die. And I think Corbin Burns would actually thrive and kind of like get back to form where he was like with the Brewers in his first few seasons with the Brewers. I think that he could be like kind of like what Blake Snell did also, and kind of like not really like reinvent himself, but just kind of like get back to like, where he was when he was in Cy Young talks before. I could definitely see that from Corbin Burns. And then Ha-Seong Kim, that seems to be like kind of like right in line with what I was saying, that they prioritize defense over offense, and Ha-Seong Kim, when with the Padres, he took away the shortstop position away from Xander Bogaerts, and the Padres signed Xander Bogaerts to be their starting shortstop because of his defense. But Ha-Seong Kim's defense was just a little bit better than Xander Bogaerts, and they had his bat in the lineup every day also, which is awesome. Ha-Seong Kim is a really good hitter. He's a bats for average, and I think that he would actually be a very good fit in San Francisco also, because San Francisco, it's like double central, and not a lot of home runs get hit in San Francisco, but a lot of doubles do because their outfield is just so big, and I think Ha-Seong Kim would be a great fit, especially because of like the stolen bases. Like they're not really like a big stolen base team, but because of the changes that MLB has made with the limiting the amount of throws over from the pitcher to first base and the bigger bases, I think Ha-Seong Kim, it's a perfect fit for San Francisco, and that seems to be their number one priority.
I think too, when the dust settles, when the season's about to start, San Francisco should be one of the top 5 teams in baseball that says, all right, we spent top 5 money in the offseason. So I think they have enough holes to fill. I would love to see them in the first base market as well. It's easy enough where I say easy enough now, but they have money to spend. They do. So if you sign a pitcher, you sign a Ha-Seong Kim, you should have enough to sign a Christian Walker, a Paul Goldschmidt, or shoot bigger for like a Pete Alonso. Just throw out the contract offer and see what happens. I think they need a star out there, and I think Pete Alonso would be a guy that could thrive out there. I really do. I'm not saying he would come to the West Coast at all or leave the Mets, but
I mean, you never know. Pete Alonso's going to go wherever the money is. You could just tell, like during the home run derby, when he's like, all in it, he's like, he loves the limelight. You know, he wants to be in the spotlight, and there's going to be a lot of money thrown at this guy. And are the Giants really willing to pay that much money for a first baseman when they have a first base prospect coming up who's 6'7", 240 pounds, a big lefty hitter, just like Pete Alonso, you know? And the thing with Pete
doesn't matter.
Alonso, though, is eventually he's going to get a little older. And yeah, exactly. He'll be the primary DH for the Giants. And it really depends on how long they would really want to lock him up. And I could definitely see him being with the team for a while. He definitely wants a long contract, you know, and I could see like a 5, maybe even a 7-year deal with the San Francisco Giants. You know, and first few years, maybe first 2 years playing first base and then being their primary DH after that. I actually really like that for Pete Alonso. I think it makes a lot of sense for him.
So we just predicted that potentially the Giants could sign Corbin Burns and Pete Alonso, and Ha-Seong Kim's a definite.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
We actually agree on all 3 of those. I kind of like that.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, truthfully. So, I mean, they have the money. Those are 3 guys that would fit right in, and that would change the look of the team going into next year.
Yeah, dude, they're $100 million under the luxury tax threshold. So they definitely got some money to spend. It's really just going to be like convincing these guys to sign with San Francisco, you know, because they got a lot of holes that they need to fill. And I think that signing those 3 guys is a good start, but they got to worry about the bullpen. They got to worry about, you know, different holes in the outfield. I think signing like a Jesse Winker, you know, to play the outfield, who is going to be relatively cheap. I think that could be like fine for, you know, a couple seasons, maybe like a 2-year deal, and figure it out along the way, you know. And if something comes up, if maybe they can have what's the prospect's name?
We have Bryce Eldridge, James Tibbs the third is the one I think you're.
That's then Bryce Eldridge. Yeah. So he's played first base and outfield. So depending on if, you know, whatever plan they have for him, he could play the outfield eventually also. He's 20 years old, so he's probably not going to be up for at least another season or 2. I'd say probably in 2026 makes more sense. He'll probably be like a September call up then. I wouldn't expect to see him at all in 2025, especially because he got drafted as a 2-way player. You know, he just dropped pitching this past February. So now he's focusing just on hitting and playing the field, first base and outfield. But it looks like they're looking at him to be their first baseman of the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little young yet, a little raw, and you develop a guy like that hopefully over time. Don't rush him and see what it turns into.
Don't be like the Seattle Mariners, man, and just bring up these guys like super early. But I feel like the Giants have always been about development, you know, like Brandon Crawford, like you mentioned him before, coming off of, you know, going into retirement now. He's known as one of the best defensive shortstops, you know, in modern generations. And I would love to see the Giants kind of like do that again. You know, the Giants have always been pretty prideful on their defense, you know, and Brandon Crawford has a cannon. He was like a vacuum at shortstop. When are they going to have the next guy that's going to fill Brandon Crawford's shoes, you know?
We'll see. Buster Posey is going to let us know in a couple years here. So let's assume, though, that they do sign, you know, they're going to spend some money this offseason. I think we all can agree on that much. Let's say they sign 2 of the 3 guys that we talked about, one of Corbin Burns, Ha-Seong Kim, and Pete Alonso. Let's say they sign 2 of the 3. Let's talk about 2025 predictions. Thank you, sir. I still don't think this lineup's good enough. I think it's tough to rely on Logan Webb to continue this success. You know, 13-10 with a 3.79, I believe, or 3.49 ERA last year. And he's been doing it. And I'm not saying he can't do it again, but to rely on it to happen again as potentially right now your ace, and if not, potentially your number 2 if they sign one of these guys, but he's probably going to be your ace. I'm going to go that they're going to finish 500, 81-81.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, unless they go after what we just talked about and sign Corbin Burns. You know, that's another 10 wins right there. 10 to 12 wins probably, which would make them above 500. I could see them, throwing one of the other guys in the bullpen. Let's see. They have Robbie Ray, and hopefully he'll be healthy for next season unless they decide to trade him. I did hear, so I actually heard on a Giants podcast earlier last week that the Giants are trying to cut payroll, but they're $100 million under the luxury tax threshold. So I don't understand what the point would be to cut payroll when they're not really spending a lot of money as it is. I think they're 15th in terms of team payroll, in Major League Baseball, and that's right in the middle. They're not at the high end, they're not at the low end, they're kind of just like mid right now. So I understand Robbie Ray's a lot of money. He's $25 million a year, but are you're going to trade this guy away for what? For peanuts, because his value is not very high right now. So I don't understand what the point of that would be. I think that you just work on development, and Buster Posey was a catcher, and catchers are one of the toughest positions to play on the field, but they also know everything that's going on. And I feel like if there's anyone that's going to help with the development of any of these pitchers, and a guy like Robbie Ray, who was amazing in the past and just kind of like hasn't really been much to look at past couple seasons. I think that Buster Posey is probably thinking the same thing that we're thinking, and he has to have a plan for Robbie Ray, and I could see Logan Webb and Robbie Ray being like a dominant, like 1 and 2. I could even see Robbie Ray becoming the number 1 over Logan Webb. The strikeouts are there. He had a 33% strikeout season last year. Logan Webb's more like 20%, 21%. He's not a strikeout pitcher at all. And I definitely see Logan Webb as a number 2. I'd love to see Corbin Burns as their number 1, but wishful thinking. Hard to say that as a Dodgers fan, and
what you are going to have to tell me as a Dodgers fan is, what is your prediction here for the season?
I'm going with you, 81 and 81.
Right.
I don't really see them surpassing that unless they go after those star free agents like we were talking about.
I mean, it is so tough. I mean, it's not even just the team itself, but it's that division. I mean, you have to face the Padres, you have to face the world champion Dodgers. Even the Diamondbacks are really good. The Rockies are the Rockies. But, facing that division is not any kind of cakewalk itself. So keeps it
especially when the Dodgers just snaked away Blake Snell from them. I think they slept on Blake Snell. They should have locked him up when they had the opportunity, and they slept on him.
I think that was Blake Snell's plan the entire time.
Well, Blake Snell was looking for that long-term deal before he eventually signed with the Giants in the offseason last year. And if you remember, he didn't even sign until spring training had already started with the Giants.
No, I know.
So
and coming off of Cy Young, so it's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And it's because of Scott Boras, man. Sometimes like he does all the right moves, and then sometimes he does none of the right moves. Looking back on it now, Blake Snell just got this 5-year deal with the Dodgers worth a lot of money, and it eventually worked out for them. But what if it didn't? And it was a gamble, on the 2024 season for Blake Snell, but it did work out. So
yeah, and Jordan Montgomery, it did not.
Nope.
Oops. There we go. Yep. Well, I will say this is the end of our San Francisco Giants episode. I really hope that you enjoyed this here with Will Power. And before you do leave, don't forget to like and subscribe here, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, follow it. And you'll find us here on Spotify as well, YouTube. So for John Murrow and for Will Power, we are out. Have a good one.
See you guys.